Hi, how's it going? So, when approaching today's video, I was trying to think of something that I could say. And like I said, I don't really plan on creating tutorial videos, but I would like them to be useful. And I certainly have a little backlog of frequently asked questions that I get. And so I'm going to try and draw from those. Not literally, but you know what I mean. So the main question I usually get asked is from beginners, and it's usually how to start. And I feel like I might have approached this subject in the past in old videos, but they're old and crusty now, and I kind of want to. This is almost like a fresh start, and I've certainly come up with different ideas during that time as well. So, first of all, if you're totally new, you might have drawn a few things as a kid or at school, but you pretty much square one. My main advice: get cheap materials. Get yourself something like this. This is a really cheap, nasty. Well, it's not nasty. But, I'm casting assumptions onto this poor pen. But no, it's really cheap. And the ink isn't, it's obviously not black. It's more of a blue, even though it claims to be black. But that'll get you started. This is printer paper. It's relatively cheap. It'll get you started. Don't bother buying a moleskin because someone said that it's the best paper in the world, because what you're going to create won't be the best thing to you. It is the best thing. Don't get me wrong. Like, anything you create is the best thing. But, you're not going to really gain anything from having such high quality paper. Same goes for tools. You're not going to need archival ink necessarily. You're not going to need, the Karl Kaplinski, Mobius, Kim Jong-gi level equipment. It doesn't really matter. But what does matter is that you draw, and you draw every day. And as I've mentioned before, if you can't think of anything to draw straight lines. Draw some squares. Try and figure out how to make those 3D. Draw circles. Try and figure out how to turn them into cylinders. You don't have to do that necessarily, just draw circles. So circles are incredibly hard, and I don't think I've ever done one that I'm overly happy with. If you're stuck for something else to draw letters. Try and make them 3D. Because surely everyone as a kid, used to do bubble writing, that sort of thing. Not that I'm very good at it, but you know what I mean. What else? Other symbols. Anything that gets you drawing, or moving that pen on the paper. The next thing is probably like the most obvious, really, is what do you want to draw? What's important to you? Never mind what anyone on the internet says, including me. What interests you? Who are the artists that you draw inspiration from, or what are the things in the world that you draw inspiration from? For me personally, I like to draw from imagination. That's my main thing. And other than that, I've always enjoyed drawing people. Whenever I've drawn from imagination, it always ends up being a person or an animal, or a living thing, not necessarily an object like cars or buildings. I'm more drawn to people, I suppose. So I try and combine those two things. It's like I'd like to draw people from imagination and fashion and things like that. So I practice figure and people. and, you know, portraits and trying to figure out anatomy and all of that sort of thing. But if you're really into botanicals or you're really into cars, you know, that don't bother learning anatomy or gesture. I mean, gesture you can do with anything, but anyway, I'm trailing off. But yeah, it's find what it is that you're interested in, what you'd like to replicate, or what, you know, what you want to express, and focus in on that. Don't necessarily worry about what other people are telling you what to do, you know, because in that respect, you might not need to draw 3D shapes. You might not be interested in doing straight lines. If you're only interested in doing something more abstract, you might not need a wealth of knowledge and terminology and in order to express yourself the way that you do. But if you are wanting to create, you know, these big worlds, and, you know, replicate things as they are in real life and learn about lighting and all of that sort of thing, you know, you are going to have to hit the books potentially, or you're at least going to have to sit and study and draw from observation. So anyway, the point of that is find out what it is you want to do, what you want to create, what your art wants to say. The next part, I suppose, is to fall in love with the process, you know. And I've said that a few times. You've got to really work at this stuff, and, you know, it takes a long time. And I'm not still that confident with it. I'm still figuring out what to do, how to do it, how to approach it, how to manage my expectations. Because for as much as I enjoy the process, and that's the main reason why I do this stuff, I you know, still bring along expectations of myself. And some days, maybe like today, because this is the first thing I've really drawn, you know, it might not feel as comfortable as it sometimes does. It doesn't flow quite right. And that's something else to remember as a beginner. You know, it's like anything. You know, it's like some days work, you know, going to work is harder than others. Some days everything feels easy. But, you know, some days your focus is off, or the weather can be bugging you, or you've got things going on in your mind that, you know, you can't quiet. And drawing or anything creative is a great way to quiet such thoughts, or to make sense of such thoughts, you know. But it can also add to the anguish sometimes, unfortunately. But the main thing, as corny as it sounds to say, is to be kind to yourself, and to realise that a drawing is just a drawing. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. And if anything, it's the imperfections that, like I've said before, it'll lead to learning more things about yourself and about drawing. And it'll help you come to terms with your own mistakes, potentially, or, you know, at least the ones that you make on the page. But yeah, something else I say to beginners, which I've sort of touched on, I think, is, you know, like I say, buy cheap things, but also, you know, buy a cheap sketchbook and just fill it all up with whatever you want, and, you know, things like self-portraits, or things like your own hand, or, you know, the the TV remote control or the, you know, what you're having for your breakfast. Just fill it and experiment with different things as well. That's never a bad thing, you know. You don't have to draw with pen. You know, you don't have to draw from imagination. You don't have to have a style. You don't have to do any of this stuff. And especially not straight away. Approach it like you would when you were a toddler. See it as an escape and something you can get some joy and some fun out of. Because not everything has to be a means to make profit. Not everything is a judgment on who you are, you know, as a person. And, you know, you don't, because this is the thing, I mean, it goes around quite a lot, but, you know, talent is a myth. There's no such thing. There's just love and appreciation for the thing that you want to do. And, you know, it's easy to get to a level once you drop the pretense and you just fall in love with something. And then, you know, you fall in love with the flaws as well. Or you at least come to terms with them. And in a lot of ways, I see drawing and the act of creating things as a relationship. And, you know, it's something that has to be nurtured. It can't be something that only ever benefits you. And at the end of the day, it's not about how it benefits you. It's not about fame. It's not about, like I say, monetary reward. It's the one thing that you can have some control over, not necessarily what goes on the page, but and the quality of it. But, you know, you can choose to get up every day and do a page. You know, it's in your control, hopefully. You know, and if you've having a busy week, you can't do that, or, you know, don't worry about it. But for me, I noticed a huge jump in what I was able to create for just practicing for half an hour a day. And then, you know, you increase that, and, you know, I literally draw all day now. And in that respect, I feel like I should be, you know, a lot better than I am, but that's the other thing. Like, define better. Because art isn't sport, like I said before, I think. You know, it's not a TikTok ranking video or something, you know, it's all, you can't put a statistic on creativity, I don't think. But anyway, there's just some kind of off the cuff thoughts. I don't claim to know the perfect thing for you, and unfortunately it is something that you are going to have to stumble in the dark for a bit. And that's fine. Because if you just turn up and do some drawing, you know, that's better than not doing that. It's better than doom scrolling. It's better than worrying about things, if you just let things go, you know. And the other thing is, you know, I mean, I always wind up drawing faces and things or skulls, but just make marks, you know. And sometimes they can turn into something, but sometimes they won't. You know, sort of fall in love with that action, because it brings you into the moment, you know, and that's important. Anyway, I've waffled on like I do, and hopefully that isn't too, all of that isn't too pretentious. I do sit around a lot thinking about things and do worry. It might come across like that, but the main thing is, you know, just start, just do the thing. And if it's something that you used to do and you've put down, and you worry that you're not good enough, and you worry that you don't have a style, and you worry, just stop worrying and just start doing something, you know. Creativity is an upward struggle, you know, and it'll rarely be perfect. Not that perfection exists, you know. Anyway, that was sort of a conclusion. Yeah, this is a process for me, learning what to talk about, how to make videos. So, you know, if you've made it this far, thank you for indulging my growing pains, and I'll be back next week, hopefully, if all goes to plan. Update on the hand for anyone interested. It's a little bit better. It's not as swollen, but it still hurts quite a lot. But it doesn't stop me from drawing, so I'm not too bothered. Anyway, that's enough about me. And yeah, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.